When I was in Bangkok last year, in my hotel room, I was suddenly woken up by someone calling my name. It's very loud and urgent and sounded just by my ears, thus making me jump up. I look at my friend and he was sleeping like a pig. I stayed in this hotel several times and that's my first encountering those things. My two girlfriends and I decided to go to Thailand in 2004 after the tsunami and help them clean up the island of Koh Phi Phi. As we were offered this assignment by our local university, everything was fine and we helped clean things all over the island. We usually take turns with other volunteers from all over the world to take off days. When it was my turn, one of my girlfriends, Joey, decided to take it with me as we really wanted to go shopping. We were recommended a hotel by the locals as we wanted to save money on lodging and spending more on shopping. It was a gloomy hotel, but it's the same everywhere at 11 p.m. and fuck it. We reached by boat from island, so we checked in and left immediately for shopping, returning only around 3 a.m. Our room had 2 single beds with a side table in the middle and a telephone on the table. There was also a picture of a rego-looking lady above the table. Her face was very stern and fierce. As we were comparing about our buys and giggling away, I suddenly noticed the face of the lady. She had a full grin on her face. Joey followed my gaze and was stunned herself. We carried everything by hand without bothering to pack and ran out, checking out. Only after reaching a coffee shop did we pack our stuff and waited for dawn with many cups of coffee to keep us awake. Me and my wife booked a hotel at Bayok Sky for a week's stay at level 78. Everything looked alright until one night we heard something fishy going on in the toilet. But nothing happened until the next day. When we came home from a full day of leisure, we came back with a cake on our desk. Curious, we phoned the customer service counter and they said nobody put that there. The cake wrote, Thung Pek Am. We went to sleep after that though and nothing happened the whole trip. Just creeps. My name is Michael, I'm 27 years old. The encounter I'm going to write about happened 2 days ago in Pattaya, Thailand. Some of you may have heard of it, if not, it is the entertainment capital of Thailand. My girlfriend was sleeping in our room and like every other day, I left to get some food. When I came back, she quickly started telling me that someone had been in our room and had sexual intercourse with her. I had only been gone 20 minutes or so. I said to her, come on, it was just a dream. But she insisted it wasn't. Then she started to describe to me that she had been in sleep paralysis, but not in her own words. A young man entered the room through the front door, and when I say through, I mean through. She said he stood beside her and stared at her. After that, he got into the shower, at which point she asked him what he was doing in my room. He told her that it was his room and he came there every day. When he had finished showering, he came right next to her. She could hear him breathing in her ear. She still couldn't move at all. She said that it was this point he got on top of her, took her pants off, and began to have sex with her. She said she touched his leg and he was extremely cold, and that the intercourse felt very slow. She could not move to defend herself or stop him any way. When he finished, he quickly jumped out the window of the 3rd floor and said he will be back. That night, she seemed very disturbed by this and insisted that she had never had an experience like this before and it was real. I was a little freaked out, but didn't worry too much. That night, we went to bed. To my horror, I was woken up in the morning by her moving around. She was lying beside me on her back with her legs spread. I tried to close her legs, but it felt like there was something or someone pulling them apart. It was impossible to close them. I tried to wake her up. It took at least 5 seconds, maybe more. Immediately when she woke up, she started kicking and screaming. She was very disturbed. She told me it was the same man again from the night before. And that is what really freaked me out. She knew it was the same person because he had one of his arms fully tattooed. She's normally the most peaceful sleeper in the world and is not the type of girl that would make this up. From what I saw with my own eyes, it was definitely chilling for me. I moved to another room immediately, but in the same block of flats. Do you think she'll be safe in my new room or should we move elsewhere? I briefly informed the receptionist why I wanted to move rooms, hoping that she wouldn't think I was crazy. To my surprise, she told me she had heard very similar stories but never at their hotel. Thanks for reading, guys. I just needed to share this with people that may know what I'm talking about. It was early 2013. I was in Bangkok with a large group of friends. We split into 3 rooms on the same floor. If I recalled correctly, it's the 6th floor or the 8th. The rooms were opposite ends of each other, 3 girls in each of the 2 rooms and 2 guys in the last room. On our first day, in the afternoon sometime after checking in, I called one of our other friends in the other room to check on what time we'll be all heading out. When she finally picked up, she motioned for us to go over her room ASAP in an urgent tone. When we arrived in their room, the friend that picked up mentioned that just when the phone rang, she heard someone talking to her from the living room, while the other 2 girls were sleeping beside her in the bedroom. On the first night, I was alone with friend number 1. After our shower, we were just resting, minding our own business in the room, our shared bedroom. Friend 2 was out shopping at the night market downstairs. After quite some time, we heard the voice of friend number 2 chatting outside our room to someone. It seemed like a conversation, but we could only make out one voice. After a few minutes, suddenly it gets really eerie and the friend number 2's voice was laughing and shrilling. Both friend number 1 and I had major goosebumps. Then we turned to look at each other. We called out to friend number 2 to check if it's really her. No response. Silence. And then friend number 2 laughed again. We were majorly creeped out already, and we called the next room with the 2 guys to come and fetch us. When they came out and got us, they confirmed that no one was in the corridor outside our room, and they didn't see our friend number 2 either. So we all just camped out at the guys' room till friend number 2 returned from her shopping fest only 2 hours later. I'm a Farang, a white boy. My skin is so white it blinds people when I take my shirt off. I came to Bangkok to train in Muay Thai. Let's just say it didn't work out so well. While shopping, I found an amulet and I thought it looked cool. It was about 3 inches tall and appeared to be the image of a baby. I didn't speak Thai at the time, so I couldn't understand what the seller was trying to tell me. If I could have understood him, then I would never have taken the amulet home. My girlfriend Nok is from Isan. Her skin is as dark as mine is white. She was horrified when we saw what I purchased from the market. She explained to me that the amulet I bought was a Kuman Thong. It is the spirit of a dead baby that has been transferred to the amulet. It requires great care and attention as would a normal living child. She told me I would have to feed it several times a day and buy toys for it. Food and toys for an amulet? To make her happy, I did it for a few days. She berated me the whole time for taking on such a responsibility. Nok left a few days later to visit her mom and instructed me to take care of the amulet while she was gone. Unfortunately, I didn't follow her instructions and I went out drinking with friends for a few days on an island and left the Kuman Thong amulet at home. If I had more room to write this story, I could fully describe the horrors that happened to me. Accidents, dog bites, and I nearly drowned while swimming. I went home and took the amulet back to the seller and told him I couldn't care for it anymore. Another Furang was there and I told him what happened. His eyes lit up and he seemed excited to own something that was haunted. I saw him pay for it and walk away. Then I turned to the seller and saw the amulet still lying on the table. I asked where the other Farang was and he forgot his amulet. The seller asked me to describe him. When I did, all the other people near let out a gasp. They said I described the amulet's previous owner, the man who fell out of his high-rise balcony to his death. The man's girlfriend had returned to Kuman Thong back to the cellar where it sat, waiting for me to buy it. Now it sits again, waiting for another to give it a home. When I went back to my country, I looked up the story of the man who I saw. He did in fact die from a mysterious fall. The police never solved the crime, but I suspect what caused it was the ghost of a dead baby trapped in an amulet, waiting for another fool to come along. This story I'm going to share is the story of my friend B. She and her 2 brothers were on their way home and it would take 3 hours to get there. Mark was seated on the driver's seat, followed by his sister B and their older brother Chi. He was driving fast because they had to be home before their mom's birthday. Halfway through their journey, Mark saw a woman crossing the road wearing black and carrying something. He didn't say a word, but B asked her brothers if they saw it. All of them did. While they were talking about what they saw, Mark looked at the driver's mirror and saw the woman running after their car. They were very frightened, and Mark drove the car as fast as he could, but the woman in black also ran as fast as she could until she reached the side window of the drivers and looked at them and disappeared. They were very frightened but reached home safely. No one dared to sleep in their own bedrooms. Instead, the three slept in their parents'. The same woman appeared in Mark's dream. He said that the woman in black stood next to him and apologized. She said, "I didn't mean to scare you, but please say a prayer for me. I'm not at peace. Please do merit for me in the temple." She also explained how she died. She said, "My husband and I were riding a motorcycle around 1 a.m. from a party in town. My husband stopped for a pee. He parked the motorcycle along the road when suddenly a car ran over me and the motorcycle and left me. My husband couldn't take me to the hospital. I died because of too much bleeding. I'll find the man who hit me." Then she disappeared and Mark woke up. The next day, Mark and his family went to the temple and did merit and prayers for that woman. Since then, she's never come back in his dreams. This incident occurred to me earlier this year. I had to oversee a project in Pattaya for a week. Since my Thai girlfriend was on leave then, she accompanied me. As my Thai girlfriend loves the beaches, there's no beach in Bangkok. The nearest beach is a couple of hours of driving away. We decided to stay in one of the beachfront resorts, under company account of costs. As during the daytime, I'd be away to work on the project. My girlfriend would laze around on the beautiful beach or would go shopping or sightseeing. She would then wait for me to return from work and we would go for dinners and clubbing. My project was completed earlier than expected, and it being a Thursday as my girlfriend seems to enjoy the trip, things that I do for her, I decided to extend the trip till Sunday evening before driving back to Bangkok. For the next 2 days, we enjoyed the sights and scenes of Pattaya, especially the night scenes. It was around 2 a.m. when we returned to our room on Saturday's night, or rather early Sunday morning, after spending the evening drinking and dancing at a local club. My girlfriend had this crazy idea of doing a skinny dip and making out in the ocean. I never tried that before but was game enough. The beach was quite deserted and pitch black at the time. Both of us went into the ocean and waddled up to the chest-height water. We started kissing and fondling each other. Suddenly, my girlfriend told me not to pinch her rear buttocks too hard. I was surprised as one of my hands were hugging her waist and the other hand on her chest area. I ignored her and continued what we were doing. About 5 minutes later, she looked scared, and now knowing where my hands were, she claimed that something had pinched her rear. She was really frightened. I thought maybe it was because of the alcohol we had consumed earlier on that night might have led to the illusion. As we slowly waddled back to the beach, something swam past me in the next moment. I saw my girlfriend struggling and was pulled below the water surface for a few seconds. I immediately went to assist her and managed to pull her back to the surface. My girlfriend's face by then was turned pale. She's actually very fair for a Thai girl, but her face at that moment was really, really pale and frightened. She said that something had grabbed her ankle and tried to pull her down, trying to drown her. We managed to reach the beach finally and was limping badly, and I could smell the smell of fresh blood on her foot. I carried her all the way to our room. When I switched on the light and started to clean her wounds, she had sustained some cuts that was bleeding. I bandaged it and held her in my arms to sleep. The next morning, before we checked out of the resort, I changed her bandages, and to our shock, there was a distinct blue-black mark which clearly represents a human hand that had clasped really hard on her ankle, thus leaving the blue-black mark. I tried to explain to my girlfriend that probably she had her leg trapped between two rocks that caused the bruise markings, and the tide coming in and the waves coming in as well. Plus, the liquor we had consumed earlier might have caused her to imagine someone was pulling her. As we were checking out, we had a short conversation with the bellhop. I told him that it was a nice place for a swim at night. He looked at us disbelievingly. What he told us shocked us. He said that the tidal wave of December 2004, there were a few cases of drowning in the vicinity. These victims had went swimming in the night and had drowned. Some victims were never found, but those whose bodies were washed up. There were bruises on their legs which looked like clasped hands. On the way back to Bangkok, my girlfriend, after hearing the bellboy's story, was in no position to drive. Once we reached Bangkok, we went to the temple to pray. Even until today, my girlfriend doesn't care to go swimming in a pool, and let alone the beach. Well, this is a personal experience. Was staying at the Indra Regent at Bangkok. Went to bed with TG, happy but not drunk. It's what seemed to be the middle of the night. I woke to hear a tapping on the room door, and I went to open it, wearing, as is my norm, the shorts part of the two-piece pajamas. Reaching out to open the door, but before I could, a beautiful woman wearing a sort of traditional dress walked straight through the closed door into the room, took me by hand, and took me to bed. It went a bit vague at this part, but I particularly remember having sex, with all its accompanying emotions. Then I must have drifted off to sleep. In the morning, TG asked me who I had been talking to. A full search of the room failed to reveal what had happened in my pajama bottoms, which were missing. The TG asked at reception and was told 2 years previously a Filipina lady killed herself by drowning in the tub on what would have been her wedding night. She had been seen on 2 other occasions previously. I knew nothing of this tale, so had no before knowledge of the story. At my girl's insistence, we changed rooms for the next night. I didn't want to, though. Any interested parties can get their room number off me, for a price. Back in 1972, there was a big motion picture. It was their first production done in Thailand about Dracula. They were advertising it all over Bangkok. During that time, a small boy was mauled to death by a dog. The rumors started up almost immediately that it was Dracula. Adverts on the motion picture soon stopped afterwards. I was at Camp Samason during that time. Our favorite place to go was the Kilo Sleep, 10 kilometers out of the Satahip heading towards Utapo, Newland, and Rayong. There were several bars visited, of course, by the military. At that time, for girls to work in these bars or any other bars, they were to have a VD card. The VD card was to say that they had been checked, they were safe and can work. Late one night, a young Thai girl tried to enter one of the most popular bars. When was asked for her VD card, she got mad and threw a raging fit. The owner and bouncer pushed her out of the bar away from the doorway. The girl continued to try and enter the bar. The owner finally called the boys in brown. 2 BIBs arrived and attempted to calm her down and take her to the police station. When the BIBs tried to grab her, she disappeared in thin air, right in front of the 2 BIBs and witnesses who were watching. None of the witnesses were white people. People around the area were frightened to go out late at nights for some time. My Thai partner and I, American Farang, which means white person, have a house in the close-in suburbs of Bangkok, recently built. The land was vacant. As far as we know, no other structure was there previously. His family has owned the land for many years. We split our time between living in the US and Thailand. I was at his house in December and January back from a long time overseas. One morning as I lay in bed, I had the feeling someone was sitting next to me, sitting on the headboard of the bed, which is a low, wide headboard about 6 inches wide. I look up and there sat a 10 to 12-year-old boy, Thai schoolboy, shortly cropped hair, slight build, in his uniform, white short sleeve button-up shirt, red neckerchief, blue shorts, and he was smiling and outstretched his hand offering me a glass of water, then vanished. It was so unexpected I sat up and gave a startled yell, and my partner came running in from downstairs to find out what was happening. It wasn't necessarily scary, but quite unsettling. The next morning as I lay in bed, the same boy walked across the bed headboard from right to left as he passed me, bent down and playfully patted or tapped me on top of my head. That same evening, late at night, I was downstairs, changing the laundry when a voice very clearly called out, "Hello." My partner was sleeping in bed 2 stories above me, and the voice sounded like a boy or a woman. I tried to convince myself I'd heard nothing, but it was extremely clear, as though it was no more than a few feet away from me. Soon after, the boy appeared to me in my dream and told me his name was Den or Tan, something like that. My partner's family lives in the next house, and his brother confided that he too had some similar experiences meeting Den or Tan, mostly disembodied voices. My partner's family had a boy die many years ago, but as a baby, not a 10 to 12-year-old boy. None of this was particularly frightening, but just very unsettling. His face is very clear to me. I can recall every detail of how he looked. Summing up all of this, to me, it felt as though he was curious about me, not threatening. Went to a large auditorium meeting about the paranormal in Bangkok. The speaker asked if anyone of the 400 people attending had ever heard a ghost. About 100 people put up their hands. He then asked everyone if they ever had seen a ghost. About 40 people put up their hands. He then asked if anyone has ever slept with a ghost. One East Indian fellow put up his hand at the back of the room. "Wow," the speaker said. "You've made love to a ghost?" "Oh, ghost?" he said. "I thought you said goat."